I just wanted to announce that on Thursday, there will be an event in Santa Fe Plaza at 5 p.m. To protest removal of the obelisk at Santa Fe Plaza. So come through Thursday at 5.
And I think you'll see those announcements coming fast and furious now. DeVargas, we're coming for you. I'd like to ask someone to come up who's hiding back in the background. Luis? No? So there's a lot of us who've been trying to get rid of this statue for a very long time. And this was just the right time, the right people, and the petition that was circulated that got all the signatures and prompted all of us to be out here today was Luis Peña.
From the Chimayo Rebellion to the Taos Revolt, our people have been dying alongside each other for collective liberation. Today, we removed a symbol, and it's just a symbol, but it's an important symbol because it's one that's cast a shadow over this valley for the longest time and divided family and made it difficult to carry on with the work that we've done historically. I'm very thankful for the Red Nation, and I'm very thankful for the people of this community that got together and made this happen, and it's part of a much larger struggle for people's voices to be heard and to start throwing out the yoke of colonialism. And I stand with you, by you, behind you, and I look forward to the days that follow. Thank you.
There's a lot of Pueblo relatives here and Dene relatives and other nations who came out to support us. So at this point, I'd like to open it up to all of our Pueblo relatives and Dene relatives who'd like to say something and like to celebrate this moment with us. Justine Teba?
Actually, my sister Jen's going to be speaking first. She's going to introduce the Red Nation.
Ubiak Indi, Sengitamu Nabikima, now call Jennifer Marley, Nabitewa calling for na Pohogeo Windia Omu. My name is Jennifer Marley. I'm from the Pueblo of San Ildefonso. And I just wanted to read a statement that is actually being read by one of our Red Nation comrades at the action to remove the statue of Onate in Albuquerque happening right now. But before that, I would like to read something that a good Acoma friend of mine wrote, just kind of outlining some history about Onate, lest we forget why we're gathered here. So it's important to remember that despite a lot of the narratives that come out about Spanish heritage and celebrating Spanish heritage, Onate was a product of rape, right? He was half indigenous. His mother was indigenous. And so it's important to remember that these legacies of colonialism can be upheld by anyone. And so Don Juan de Onate was a colonizer, a murderer, a trafficker of young indigenous women and men, an enslaver, a mutilator, and a leader of the near genocide of Haakume, or Acoma Pueblo. In a 3-day battle, he ordered Vicente de Salzavar, his nephew, to seek retribution against Acomas for rebelling. 800 women, children, and men were murdered, and the original village was burned and destroyed. He then ordered 24 warriors' right foot amputations and more than 20 years of slavery. He ordered that 2 Hopi men have their right hand amputated, and young men between 12 and 20 were enslaved for over 20 years. 60 young women were trafficked to Mexico City as servants to Catholic covenants. And so now I'm just going to give a little bit of background about who we are as the Red Nation, why we formed, and why we're here today. We formed in 2014 directly in response to the rising anti-police brutality movement growing here in New Mexico and starting after the murder of James Boyd, an unsheltered man in Albuquerque. We know that in border towns, like Albuquerque or Gallup or Espanola, that there is rampant violence against indigenous people, despite the fact that we're on our own lands, and that these towns depend on our labor and our money to keep them afloat. A place like Espanola is often not seen as a border town, yet this anti-Indian violence has persisted. We're constantly pushed to the margins here on our own land, forced to stay in motion. And I know that as of late, it's undeniable that this racist violence has become more and more visible, just as it has all over the country. We are a coalition of Native and non-Native activists, educators, students, and community organizers advocating Native liberation. We formed to address the marginalization and invisibility of Native struggles within mainstream social justice organizing, and to foreground the targeted destruction and violence toward Native life and land. We are anti-capitalist and anti-colonial. We are indigenous feminists who believe in radical relationality. We do not seek a milder form of capitalism or colonialism. We demand an entirely new system premised on peace, cooperation, and justice. For our earth and relatives to live, capitalism and colonialism must die. This is non-negotiable. There are so many victories to celebrate right now, despite these difficult and unprecedented times. All over the world, people's hearts are on fire, demanding an end to police and state violence. The humble people of the earth are actively creating the world they have imagined in their wildest dreams. And I know the removal of the statue here and all over the country is something I did not see this soon. I didn't see happening this soon. For this reason, we must make it clear why we're here today. Although we've been working a long time to have these racist symbols removed, our Black and African relatives have reignited this revolutionary flame. And it is because of their leadership that we have seen people emboldened to tear down racist monuments that celebrate the genocide of colonized people all over the world. Our histories of resistance have always been interlinked with Black resistance. Starting from the time the Spaniards brought enslaved Africans here, they've been kin with us. They've been a part of our Pueblos. It is more important than ever that all colonized people be in solidarity with each other. Now is not the time for an oppression Olympics, exemplified by the popular term All Lives Matter. We must remember the way indigenous and non-indigenous people have worked together to drive out the Spanish and American colonizers here in New Mexico. As my brother just mentioned, the Taos Revolt, the Chimayo Revolt, and plenty of others where we were successful. We're not free until we're all free, and the liberation for some of us cannot depend on perpetuating settler colonial violence against others. You cannot critique revisionist history if you are not willing to respect Native nationhood today. You cannot advocate for a conquistador statue to be torn down while still citing Spanish land grants to make claim to indigenous land and resources. You cannot give validity to any settler state, their laws, their policies, and their politics of recognition because they are designed for our elimination. This is not an opportunity to claim we're all indigenous. This is not an opportunity to be an opportunist and piggyback on anti-colonial movements fronted by Native and Black people to further one's own agenda for colonial recognition. We must be good relatives to each other, caretake the land with each other, and build a world outside the confines of this settler state. So please continue to follow the lead of Black and Indigenous people. And remember, no one ever stops doing the hard work of unlearning racism. Decolonization is a lifelong project. It's a centuries-long project. Just as the project of colonization has spanned centuries, we must continue to undo it for as long as we live. We must remember the work of our ancestors, but also look forward to the unborn. Please please join us in our ongoing struggle for liberation. Kutawoha, thank you.